Something in you is contracting right now. Maybe you can feel it as you listen to this, a subtle tightening in your chest, a narrowing of what feels possible. Energy that was effortlessly there last month simply isn't there today. The future that felt so crystal clear has suddenly gone a little dark. We call this state many things in our modern world. We call it burnout, we call it a bad patch, a creative funk, a depressive episode. We treat it as an objective malfunction, a design flaw in our humanity. We view it as something that has gone fundamentally wrong, something to fix, push through, ignore, or overcome with sheer brute force. But what if this contraction is not a malfunction? Rumi, the 13th century Persian poet and mystic, wrote with extraordinary, clinical precision about the delicate movements of our inner life. His deepest, most radical observation was this: the human soul does not move in a straight line. It is not an upward trending corporate growth chart. The soul breathes, it expands, and it contracts, and both movements are entirely necessary for your survival. This is not a video about being positive. It is about something much deeper and far more honest than that. It is about learning to read your internal contraction correctly. Think deeply about how a physical lung works. It does not only expand. Expansion without contraction is not breathing. It is inflation. It is a medical emergency. It is the contraction, the painful, empty exhale that actually makes the next deep breath possible. They are not opposing forces fighting each other. They are a single, unified rhythm. Rumi understood this sacred law about the inner terrain. He wrote about contraction as a state that is not the absence of grace, but merely a different expression of it. When your soul contracts, you are not being punished by the universe. You are not failing. You are gathering. Think of the winter outside your window. The tree does not die during the freeze. It withdraws. Everything it previously gave outward to the leaves and the brilliant light is pulled violently inward to the core. The roots deepen. The interior strengthens. And when the inevitable spring finally arrives, that tree possesses more depth, more root, more structural capacity to hold what the next expansion will bring. Winter seems bitter, but it is also profoundly kind. We resist our internal winter because we live in a hyper-optimized culture that exclusively worships expansion, continuous growth, metric output, relentless movement. To be still, even for a moment, feels like total defeat. But Rumi is pointing at something our modern world has completely forgotten. Contraction is not the opposite of growth. It is the very root of it. Rumi goes much further than simply defending the low points of life. He makes an intellectual claim that stops most high achievers cold. He says sorrow is not the enemy of joy. It is the literal soil in which true joy grows. He wrote, "The sugar of sensual joy is the fruit of the garden of sorrow." This is not a romanticization of pain. It is a realistic observation about how human depth is constructed. The people in your life who possess the most genuine, unshakable joy, not performed happiness for a camera, but the real thing, the kind that doesn't break under massive pressure. Those people have almost always been broken open by something devastating. Because sorrow, when met honestly, teaches us what comfort never can. It strips away the superficial noise. It teaches you what actually matters to your core, what you grieve, ultimately reveals what you love. In this way, the wound and the medicine become the exact same thing. Rumi writes, "Learn to embrace sorrow. Look straight at its face and joy will reappear. Not avoid sorrow, not distract yourself from it. Embrace it. Look directly into its face. Everything in our digital world tells us to look away, to scroll past the discomfort, to stay busy enough that the darkness can't find us, but it always finds us. And the longer we run, the harder the finding." Rumi makes a psychological distinction that cuts through all modern anxiety. He wrote, "The eyes of a child are fixed on the wants of now. The eyes of the wise see to the end." The child inside us sees only the current contraction, the cold, the acute discomfort, the total absence of what was once warm, fast, and easy. The child wants the winter to end immediately because the child's vision can only see as far as the boundary of the freezing weather. The wise person sees much further. They have lived long enough or suffered honestly enough to know that the contraction has a specific direction. It is not a permanent trap. It is a tunnel. They know that seeds buried deep in the frozen mud do not stay buried forever. And this macro perspective changes how you sit inside your current low point. You no longer need to pretend it isn't happening. You do not need to force a fake, manufactured optimism that you do not feel. What you need is to see to the end. Contraction is not your failure. It is your preparation. Rumi also writes, "When you close your mouth, another one opens." Seeking nourishment in the mysteries of life. Stop trying to frantically speak, plan, or hustle your way out of the contraction. Close the mouth. Stop searching for answers on the surface of form and simply listen for what opens in the dark, because something always opens, not on your ego's schedule, but the expansion always returns. So what does Rumi's understanding actually offer you right now? Not a quick cure, not a specific timetable. Something much quieter and far more powerful than that. First, absolute permission to be exactly where you are today. You are not behind in life. You are not broken. You are simply in the exhale. And as we established, without the exhale, there is no breath. Second, a complete change in your relationship to the heavy feeling. Instead of fighting the contraction, trying to logically think your way out or push through it with sheer, desperate effort, try something harder and more honest. Look at it. Sit in the room with it. Ask what this quiet space is here to teach you. The lessons learned in contraction are the only ones that actually change a human being. Third, an unshakable trust in the rhythm itself. Not blind hope, but a deep, historically backed trust that comes from watching your own life closely enough to see that every single one of your past contractions has always, eventually, opened into something beautiful. All human action sways between contraction and expansion. Both are as fundamentally important as the opening and closing of the wings of a bird in flight. You cannot fly on the opening alone. The closing is half the flight. So close. Rest in the closing. Root deeply in the dark. Let the winter do what winter does. And when the expansion inevitably comes, as it will, as it always does, you will meet it with deep roots that weren't there before. This is neon silence. If this reached you in the contraction, you are in exactly the right place. Join the silence.